The rain pounded heavily against the towering glass facade of the Apex Global headquarters, but inside the executive boardroom, the atmosphere was freezing, sharp and entirely unforgiving. At the center of a massive mahogany conference table sat Leo Vance. At just 28 years old, Leo was the youngest self-made CEO in the tech industry, a brilliant software architect who had built a multi-million-dollar logistics empire from a cramped college dorm room. Yet, beneath the crisp Italian suit and the confident veneer he wore like armor, Leo carried a title far more sacred to him than any corporate rank: single father. Back home, safely tucked into her crib, was his 2-year-old daughter, Lily, the very heartbeat of his existence, the reason he endured grueling 18-hour workdays, and the sole motivation behind the high-stakes acquisition contract sitting open before him, a life-altering $900 million deal with the Sterling dynasty. Standing at the head of the table was Marcus Sterling, the iron-fisted patriarch of the Sterling family, flanked by his legal team and his eldest son, Julian. Marcus was a man whose wealth had insulated him from basic human empathy for decades, treating people like line items on a balance sheet. He looked down at Leo not with the respect due to a fellow innovator, but with the arrogant disdain of a feudal lord looking at a peasant trespassing on private land. "Let's cut through the corporate formalities, Mr. Vance," Marcus began, his voice dry and devoid of warmth, cutting sharply through the silent room. "We've reviewed your final logistics software integration terms. Frankly, your technology is brilliant, perhaps too brilliant for someone of your unconventional background. But the Sterling board has deliberated, and we have decided to amend our offer quite drastically." Leo's eyes narrowed slightly as he leaned forward, resting his palms on the polished wood. "Amended, Mr. Sterling. We signed a preliminary memorandum of understanding last month locking in the $900 million valuation. My team spent 6 months optimizing our code base specifically for your infrastructure." "What amendments are you talking about?" Julian Sterling let out a sharp, condescending laugh, leaning back in his leather chair with a smug smirk. "It means, Mr. Vance, that you miscalculated your leverage," Julian interjected, his tone dripping with public mockery. "We know all about your personal life. We know you're a single father raising a toddler alone out of a modest suburban townhouse because your wife tragically passed away. A young man with those kinds of domestic distractions has no business handling a tech asset of this magnitude. You are desperate for this liquidity, aren't you? You need our capital to keep your servers running." The boardroom grew dead silent, the air thick with cruel anticipation as the Sterling family waited for Leo to break, expecting him to scramble, sweat, and grovel for their mercy. Marcus leaned forward, clasping his hands together with a predatory smile. "Here is our final, non-negotiable take-it-or-leave-it proposal, Leo. We drop your company's valuation from $900 million down to $150 million. Furthermore, you surrender all intellectual property rights to your proprietary AI algorithms, and you step down as CEO immediately, remaining on board merely as a salaried consultant with zero voting power. Take it, or walk out that door right now with nothing, knowing you drove your company straight into bankruptcy." They thought they had him trapped in a cornered by his responsibilities as a single parent, assuming that the fear of financial ruin would force him to swallow his dignity and accept their utter degradation. Leo didn't flinch. He didn't raise his voice, slam his fists, or stammer in panic. Instead, a chilling, absolute calm settled over his features. He slowly closed the heavy leather folder containing the multi-million-dollar contract, smoothing down the cover with deliberate, unhurried care. For a brief second, his mind flashed back to a cold winter night 2 years earlier, holding newborn Lily in a drafty apartment while eating instant noodles, promising her that no matter how difficult the world got, he would never let anyone strip away her father's self-respect. He looked up, locking his piercing, steady gaze directly onto Marcus and Julian Sterling, letting the heavy silence stretch across the room until the executives began to shift uncomfortably in their seats. "For months, Mr. Sterling, my engineers and I poured our souls into creating a system that would revolutionize your supply chain," Leo began, his voice shockingly soft, yet carrying an undeniable, resonant authority that commanded every ear in the room. "We believed we were partnering with visionaries, men who understood the true value of hard work, innovation, and integrity. Instead, I find myself sitting across from predators who mistake a man's dedication to his family for a weakness, and who confuse corporate negotiation with outright extortion. Julian scoffed, opening his mouth to hurl another insult, but Leo raised a single finger, cutting him off with a look so intensely sharp that Julian froze mid-sentence. You think you hold all the cards because you assumed I was desperate, Mr. Sterling. You assumed that because I raise my daughter with my own hands, I am willing to let my life's work be stolen by arrogant cowards who have never built anything of real value in their entire lives. With a fluid, deliberate motion, Leo stood up from his chair, buttoned his suit jacket, and picked up his leather briefcase. You asked for my final answer regarding your $900 million buyout, and your humiliating demands, Leo said, his eyes scanning the pale faces of the Sterling board members who were suddenly beginning to look nervous as they sensed a catastrophic shift they didn't yet understand. My answer is no. Keep your money, keep your corporate boardrooms, and keep your pathetic delusions of absolute power. Marcus slammed his hand onto the table, his face turning crimson with rage. Are you out of your mind, boy? You walk out that door, and I will personally blacklist you from every venture capital firm, bank, and tech network in this country. You will never work in this industry again. You'll lose everything. Leo offered a cold, knowing smile, turning toward the grand mahogany exit without a single shred of hesitation. You can keep your blacklist, Mr. Sterling, because as of 4 minutes ago, my legal team finalized an exclusive global partnership and full corporate acquisition agreement with your primary international competitor, the Vanguard Group, who valued our technology not at $900 million, but at $1.2 billion, with a clause explicitly barring us from ever doing business with the Sterling enterprise. The color drained entirely from Marcus and Julian's faces, leaving them staring in sheer, unadulterated horror as the monumental weight of their corporate suicide crashed down upon them. Without looking back, Leo opened the boardroom door and walked out into the bright hallway, his head held high, ready to go home and cook dinner for his little girl, knowing that true wealth is measured not by what is in your bank account, but by the unbreakable integrity of your soul.